Good evening, Your Excellencies, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I consider it a great honor and privilege to have been invited to this auspicious occasion. I'm even more deeply humbled by the significance of the event of the inauguration of a new president and investiture of the new fellows of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, PSN. My joy is extreme for many reasons. First is the fact that the new president of the PSN, Professor Usifoh, is a senior and distinguished professor of the University of Benin, who has been a source of pride, not only to the University of Benin, but also to the pharmacy profession, and indeed, Nigeria. I congratulate him. And it will also interest you that he is the very first 7th professor to be the president of PSN. I am aware that the fellows from Edo State in this round of fellowship investiture are distinguished professors of the University of Benin. I therefore also congratulate my own, our own, Professor Ray Ozowa and Professor Henry Okiri. I congratulate to no lesser extent all the fellows of this noble profession. Fellowship of a professional body is the highest recognition for the services that has been rendered by specialists over the years. May those who will be invested today use their new status to the betterment of the pharmacy profession. Permit me, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to quickly place on record some of the attributes of the pharmacists. Pharmacists are experts in drugs. They discover them, manufacture them, and are repository of knowledge on how they should be handled and used. Pharmacists counsel on the adverse effects of drugs and play clinical intervention roles that bring huge positive outcome to patient treatment. Pharmacists are not just custodians and fabricators of drugs. They are also great administrators. A nation is as strong as its medical security. In many ways, pharmacists secure their nations and contribute to developing the economy. Pharmacists are simply great people. Congratulations, President of PSN. Congratulations, new fellows of PSN. Congratulations, Nigeria pharmacists. And I am almost tempted to say, congratulations, great UNIBEN. I must also, I'm sure His Excellency, Professor Fashola, knows why I said that. He's an alumnus of the great university. I must also express my deep gratitude to the organizers of this event for asking me to be the keynote speaker on the topic, Igniting Our Society, Connecting the Dots. This topic is apt, particularly now that all developmental indices place our own dear nation, Nigeria, as one that is struggling. We must therefore ignite our society by connecting the dots if we are truly serious about overcoming our numerous challenges. Our dear nation has fallen short of its attainment despite its resources, both human and material, available to it. We are all familiar with the numerous problems confronting us today as a nation. I wish to state, however, that we can positively arrest the situation if we ignite and dot the positive values of our society through conscientiousness, dedication, and patriotic orientation of the values of our society. From the historical perspective, it can be seen that while our tradition and post-independent societies were not perfect, things have since taken a negative turn for the worse. The question thus is, what has actually gone wrong in terms of the values of our society? As I humbly discuss my views on these pertinent questions, permits me to first try to agitate us all, assuming we are not already super agitated with the indices of ignominy of our dear country, Nigeria. Recent publication of the World Poverty Clock show that Nigeria as a country has high numbers of persons living in poverty. The National Bureau of Statistics similarly reports that unemployment rate in Nigeria is at all-time high, with many of the country's youth either unemployed or underemployed. Nigeria, despite being the best and the biggest economy in Africa, a closer look at the practical microeconomics indices reveals that the country still labor under the burden of humongous domestic and foreign debts. Seriously, anyone in this arena who is not perturbed by these issues must have a very effective shock absorber and must consider his or her allegiance to this country. The mirage of other challenges facing Nigeria are also well documented that I need not bore you with them today. Distinguished pharmacists, ladies and gentlemen, to anchor this address, I will briefly estray the value system, political, professional, and economic outlook of our dear country, Nigeria. Sociologists will have us define a society as a group of people with common territory, interaction, and culture. Therefore, my concept of society in this brief address is with respect to Nigeria as a nation made up of smaller societies. Therefore, what we see in the larger society is an aggregate of what is happening in the smaller units. My dear listeners, things are changing at neck-breaking speed, apparently in the wrong direction. I do agree with the late founder of Apple Computers, Steve Jobs, that you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect with you in the future. In essence, we must first connect where we are coming from as a society and then connect where we are going in the future. You will agree with me that with the coming of colonization and the attendant social phenomenon of westernization and urbanization, our societal fabric was distorted and dislocated. Most of the cherished social values were either modified, adulterated, or jettisoned under the guise of civilization. Hence, the society today reflects a situation of flux where vices seem to be the main attraction for people. It is important to aver at this point that while intrusion of Westernization altered the order of things in the African society, most of the current distorted behavioral practices cannot be attributed to colonization. The last point is hinged on the reality that although Westernized society have also distorted value system, they have been able to manage the related challenges in ways that do not currently impair the development. Thus, Westernization cannot be equated with lawlessness, misbehavior, and unacceptable conduct. Instead, a strict adherence to the full gamut of the Western culture will show that it extols order, decency, respect for what can be called global best practices. Unfortunately, our country has continued to witness degradation and degeneration in striking to acceptable, decent societal conduct. It is unfortunate that the conduct of our professionals in the discharge of their responsibility have also fallen into the trap of not keeping to set rules and regulations. There is therefore the urgent need to reposition the values and conduct of all actors in the society if we must get it right as a people. Why not calling for us to return to our traditional society, which might be uncalled for in the face of the unstoppable transformation? I urge you here that there is the need to extol and celebrate and emphasize those identifiable values, norms, and beliefs that will cherish and head the social fabric of the society today in the past. In this regard, it is noteworthy that most of our youth these days now pay very little regard to hard work. Many do not see the need to go to school and strive to earn a certificate. The ones in school are there to meet parental expectations and are hardly committed to their studies. The rate of substance abuse is alarming. Ritual killings and internet fraud has taken most and seems to be the new norm. Dressing has become weird and leaves little for the imagination of the anatomy. Despite the collective rejection of the bill on same-sex marriage, the percentage of homosexuals and persons with deviant sexual orientation and practices have continued to be significant in our society. It is obvious that the light of morality, decency, hard work, and all that makes for a good society has been extinguished. There is the need for it to be ignited. When a society is failing in its quest to be egalitarian, utopian, and moral, the religious sector then come to the rescue. These religions ought to help redirect the society in the path of sanity and growth. Sadly, religions do not seem to be of much help. Age-long beliefs and moralities are being turned on their heads. In place of love, hatred is often being promoted in the name of religion. Religions seem now to tell us that we should exercise caution in how we relate with persons of other faith. It is obvious the fire is out. The political space has also lost its glow. What we see in politics are far from what the founding fathers had planned and anticipated. The desire for public office is no longer because of the desire to render quality, selfless service, but largely for personal gains. The founding fathers of our society, Sir Ahmadu Bello, Alhaji Tafawa Balewa, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, and Chief Enahoro, to mention a few, would grieve over the poor patriotic disposition of the present-day politicians. The fire of developmental politics has burnt out and needs to be ignited. Professions are not any different. There were times when people sought to go into professions for the love of the profession. People sought to be pharmacists and nothing else because they could see themselves as solving the specific problems for society. Many of our youths no longer seek to be doctors, engineers, lawyers, accountants, economists, and so on, for what they can give the society, but how they themselves can get the best from society. The poor economic situation makes parents to direct their children into certain profession, regardless of whether or not the children have the flair or zeal for those professions. As a vice chancellor, I can tell you the pressure from admission requests into specific courses is overwhelming. And the simple reason is what parents are afraid, that their wards may not be gainfully employed when they graduate. We should all deeply be worried that professions, particularly in the health sector, are being pursued without consideration for their equally good and highly needed professions. This was not the case in the past. Societal fire needs ignition in this regard. Do our people enlisting to the Nigerian police force and the paramilitary services for patriotic reasons? From the onset, the majority planned how they would use their service for their own benefit and those of their family. Little wonder that there is so much insecurity, because those who ought to secure us pay little attention to the dictates of the society. The fire is certainly out and needs to be ignited. Our population has grown astronomically, but infrastructural development has not kept pace with it. I recall when the big multinational drug manufacturing companies had plants in Nigeria. They were Boots, Bechem, Hearst, Sterling Withrop, Parkins, Park Davis, and others. To strengthen the pharmaceutical manufacturing capacity of the nation, the federal government then established the Eleme Petrochemical Company, a subsidiary of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, to produce benzenes as starting materials for the local synthesis of drugs. Decades afterwards, we are still largely importing most of our medicines. This burnt out light in the pharmaceutical sector is a reflection of what is happening in all other sectors. There is no doubt that things have fallen very short of their expectation. Indeed, it has become an investment in frustration among massive perpetuated infrastructural expansion without corresponding development. There has been a recurrent argument that the Nigerian state is underperforming due to the lack of capacity to tackle effectively the contemporary complexities of governance. The country's economy is seemingly at crossroads. The causes of the losses in terms of human lives and miseries continue unabated in spite of the purported frantic efforts being made. The situation is even more challenging for professionals and technocrats because of the problem of systemic failure and the disconnect that pervades the Nigerian state. The Nigerian society is currently characterized by structural imbalance, infrastructure decay, educational deterioration, poor moral values, high levels of job loss, unemployment rate, very appalling power supply, inadequate health facilities, high and worrisome level of insecurity, decline in economic growth, frightening inflation rates, high cost of living due to persistent rise in prices of goods and services, high taste for foreign goods, which can all be attributed to the long-term ineffective leadership and docile followership. Indeed, everyone has a fair share of the blame, for all of us are involved. Distinguished pharmacists, ladies and gentlemen, we have reflected on where our society is and where it was. We could go on and on, connecting the dots of the present with the past, but we are limited by time. We have thus become a people who always prefer our yesterday, and that is because the fire is out and needs to be ignited. The past is a dot we have so far connected with. Every one of us in this hall represents the dot of the present. Charles Kellin, who was the head of research at the United States General Motors from 1920 to 1947, reminds us that a problem well stated is a problem already half solved. Agreeing that the fire keeps our society aglow has gone out, we must begin to address the following questions. What will cause the ignition to spark? Who will cause it? How? When should it be? The answers to these questions seem to me to be very simple. In my view, the spark should be carried by the change to the right attitude by each and every one of us, and the time is now. It is not the Americans, it is not the Canadians, nor is it our colonial masters, nor the Asian countries, and certainly not any other nations or society, but we can cause the all-important spark that will ignite our society again. Can each of us begin to think of how to get the society functional by replacing self-advancement with patriotism? Permit me to paraphrase the words of Professor Jerry Garner when he was the chairman of the defunct Mass Mobilization for Social Justice and Economic Recovery, MAMSA. If you are a parent, parent well. If you are a teacher, teach well. If you are a professor, profess well. If you are a soldier, soldier well. If you are a policeman, police well. If you are a pharmacist, pharmacist well. And if you are a fellow, fellowship well. If broken lines represent our connection with the past, we need solid lines to connect with the future. The challenge is before us. I choose to do the things that I do better. Therefore, my focus as a Vice Chancellor of the University of Benin is to build an institution that promotes quality learning and character building. I applied for the job, and I am applying myself to the job. I am leading a team that is determined to make a positive change that will ignite our society. As a profession, PSN will have to play her part. The Nigerian society desperately needs the spark from PSN. We can achieve reasonable self-sufficiency in drug production. The drug distribution channel need to be sanitized to remove the presence of fake and expired medicines. Every Nigerian needs to feel the impact of the pharmacist for more. The future of a society rests on the quality and orientation of the coming generation. As it is often said, the youths are the leader of tomorrow. It follows that we must pay more attention to them. We have to train them well. Being young and impressionable, they are bound to make mistakes, but it is our responsibility to correct them. We have to be stern when we should, but we should show them love, neither less. As an institution for raising future generation, the University of Benin is dedicated to quality teaching at undergraduate and postgraduate levels. Aside from internal mentorship, the University of Benin encourages external mentorship from successful members of the public. I request you all to help us mentor the future leaders of our great country. Distinguished pharmacists, ladies and gentlemen, one of the steps in the process of seeking to ignite the Nigerian society is capacity building. It is time that we could help provide the needed foundation that will create the understanding that the change desired is important and must begin with us. This would also help to fight high rates of apathy and indifference among our people. Nigerians must be made aware of the gains that we accrue from our collective efforts aimed at invigorating the system that will eventually make things more tolerable and enjoyable in our dear country. This is the only way our people will be willing and become more enthusiastic about the Nigerian state. We must work extremely hard to cultivate solid networks for the social, economic, and political development of our dear country. In our country, we have also consistently bemoaned the apparent lack of solid and clear policies that will guide much of what we do, and even more seriously, the lack of or far from little resources made available to drive our efforts towards the goal of providing the needed knowledge, skill, and attitude for igniting the state of the Nigerian economy. Besides, we have also bemoaned the widespread lack of political will and commitment to drive all the efforts made towards igniting the Nigerian economy or society. Professionals and bodies like yours must consistently strive to ensure that the strong political will and commitment is instituted if we must attain the goal of igniting the Nigerian society. As a corollary to the above, we must look all at the past, learn from our experiences, critically estray all the activities we have initiated, and try to create newness of these efforts and making sense of what we do and have. In addition, the interest we show on issues concerning the social, economic, political, and cultural advancement of the Nigerian state must continue to be given greater attention, and the debate must also continue to gather momentum. We must heighten the debate in order to strengthen our efforts and harden our reinforcement. The relationship between the people and government must be strengthened. The government must carry the people along in all dealings. This will help build the people's confidence in the system and encourage or motivate them to demonstrate the needed commitment to ignite or invigorate the Nigerian economy or state. This again underscores the issue of synergy among professionals, the industry, the government in seeking to transform and ignite the Nigerian state. Distinguished pharmacists, ladies and gentlemen, let me once again thank you for honoring me with this invitation. I conclude by inviting everyone to ignite your society by having the right attitude to our profession and by extension our society. We should be instruments for connecting positive ideas and for connecting focused, talented, and experienced persons to cause the needed spark that will keep our society permanent aglow. The dots of the past connect with the present, and the present connects with the future. Our future will be greater, but we will not merely wish so, we must and we will have to walk the talk. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all for listening. God bless the President, fellows and members of PSN. God bless the great UNIBEN. God bless Nigerian society. God bless all of you listening, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Can we give our keynote speaker